Good moment, baseball universe. Welcome into another, what I hope to be a fantastic edition of Backwards K, where we collect ball players and their stories. I'm Jake the Snake Robinson. I'm coming out of Pawleys Island, South Carolina, high on top of the Robinson Gearing Studio Complex. So, look, it's been a while since we've spoken, and, you know, the world is, well, it's still a mess. Coronavirus has pretty much impacted almost every human being on the planet. Here in America, we're in the midst of not only the pandemic, but the nation is embroiled in probably the most divisive election since, 1860. And I look around and all my childhood heroes are falling on their swords these days. I mean, it's horrific and it's sad. And we've said goodbye to quite a few legends, Hall of Famers in just the past 2 months. Seaver, Brock, Gibby, Kaline, Morgan. And just last week, I got to tell you, the death of Eddie Van Halen, that just about broke me. I mean, quite honestly. I mean, that is the end of my teenage innocence as far as I'm concerned. So, look, I'm not trying to piss in your Cheerios today, but it's been awful. And hopefully I can take your minds off of that for the next few minutes as I hope to bring some happiness with my next guest. Now, when I was a kid, I was handed the gift of baseball by my Uncle David. And we were just two stupid kids selling newspapers, living in West Baltimore, Evanston Village, spending our earnings on baseball cards. And there was always one guy who caught my attention as soon as I saw his card. And I think the one thing that I was fascinated by the most was basically his overall size. I had never seen a pitcher with that kind of size. 6'8", almost 300 pounds. Then I looked at the back of his stats, and back-to-back 300K season. Was one of the Black Aces, and instantly I became like this fan of J.R. Richard. Now, unfortunately, that was the summer of '79. And I was an 8-year-old kid then. I was just this socially awkward, stupid kid. And a year later, literally, his career was over. The shooting star was gone. And he had a career-ending stroke. And he had a series of events that happened after that we're going to talk about today. And I was just a 9-year-old kid who lost a hero. I didn't really understand why. And I think that J.R. Richards, even though he was a great player, he kind of escaped my consciousness for a while. So my next guest, he's been to the top of the mountain, and he's looked down, and he's literally climbed out of the depths of hell, like the Bulldog competitor that he is on the field. And today he's agreed to sit down with me on a one-on-one live interview. He doesn't do many of these, and I am so proud today to have James Rodney Richard, otherwise known in the baseball community as J.R. Richard. I'm going to call him up right now. I think he's waiting in a Houston hotel for me, actually. And I'm really, really excited about this. I mean, who would have ever thought that I would be sitting here speaking to Mr. J.R. Richard?
Hello?
Mr. Richard, how are you? This is Jake from the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network.
I'm doing fine. Fine, so how are you doing?
I am doing quite well. It is so glad to finally chase you down. I got to tell you, I have spent years chasing you down. You're one of the toughest guys to chase down. I'm so glad that you took time to sit down and spend this with me. A lot of craziness going on with the coronavirus. Are you okay? Is your family safe from the coronavirus?
I'm doing well, Jay. God has been kind to my family and I.
Right, well,
and we are, and everything is well on this end.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So, I also was just talking about how we've lost so many great Hall of Famers in the last 2 months or so, and some of these guys were like your peers. I know growing up that you admired Bob Gibson. Was that safe for me to say that Bob Gibson was one of your favorite players when you were a kid?
Yes, he was. Exactly. I remember listening on the radio to Bob Gibson in the World Series, how he was throwing that ball.
And then
what was so great is that I got a chance to meet Bob Gibson, and he said, "Man, I wish I could have thrown as hard as you.
That is awesome. Now, did you ever pitch against Bob in a game?
No, I did. Never did.
Never did. Okay. But so like when you see these guys like Bob Gist and Lou Brock, somebody that you competed against, Al Kaline, Tom Seaver, I mean, it's got to be really, really sad and kind of eye-opening for you to see your peers fall like this, huh?
Well, it is, Jake. It makes you sit back and take notice about what's really going on in the world and how things are. And I think one main factor, Jake, I can say that you got to realize that you're not in control of anything.
That's right. That's right. It's very good. That's very good. And okay, well let's go back here. Let's talk about your beginnings. You grew up in a town called Vienna, Louisiana. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And what was your life like in Vienna as a kid?
Very country.
Right.
Very country. Matter of fact, country as a dozen of eggs. I was very country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Jake, the major thing I can say that when I was growing up, my father and I had a close relationship, and he told me to have more for my son than he had for me, and that just translated into being the best.
Right.
And that's why I prided myself on being the best of whatever I've done. Shooting marbles, playing pool, playing football, playing basketball. I prided my work ethics.
Right.
On being the best.
So you're definitely like this type A personality. I'm the best. I'm going to prove I'm the best. When did you notice, when you're growing up, when did you notice that, hey, I'm better than these kids that I'm playing with. I'm bigger than them. I'm stronger than them. And I'm better than them. When did you realize that?
Well, I didn't really notice that, Jake, until later on in life. I think I was in pro ball.
Okay.
When they had sent a guy up in the major league, had sent him to the major leagues, and my record and my stats was much better than his, so I complained. And that's when I realized that I'm pretty good.
Right.
And I complained. And I just told them to trade me, and we had a big hoopty about that. So,
well,
and
that's
eventually they sent me up to the major leagues.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you don't really see yourself as like you were better than other kids when what I'm saying comparatively when you were a kid. Is it that kids were just as good as you, but they didn't have the work ethic that you had?
Well, I think one thing, Jake, to see that I was raised, you're not to consider yourself being better than anyone. Mm-hmm. Would be as equal, and I never did take it to heart that I was any better than either one.
Interesting.
My main thing, Jake, was just to be the best that you could possibly be, because if I understand the Bible says you don't boast about yourself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You let your work stand for you.
Heard. Well, you said that you played other sports. When I look at you, I definitely see a basketball player. I'm sure you played some football. What position did you play in football?
I played quarterback, punted, defensive end, safety.
Wow. So, and you grew up, like, Vienna, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of outside of Ruston, Louisiana. Is that correct?
Yes, it's 8 miles north of Ruston on the Highway 167.
So I got to think, when you were a kid, well, I'm sure it was Jim Crow South, and you probably didn't play a lot of integrated ball. But I'm kind of thinking around that time, Burt Jones is probably a high school legend in Ruston, Louisiana, in football. Is that? Did you ever play against him or see him play when you were younger?
No, I did not. I'm not familiar with Burt Jones at that time.
Oh, okay.
See, Jake, excuse me for cutting you off here.
No.
When I was coming up as a kid, as a poor black kid, we didn't have nothing to, no toys or things,
Right.
Like the other little kids, so I used to get rocks and go down in the woods and kill birds with rabbits with rocks. That was my entertainment.
That's. Let me ask you, with those big hands, I've seen you hold like 7 baseballs in that hand. I can only imagine how many rocks you held in that hand.
Yeah, that was 9, Jake. That's what I understand. I understand, Jake. It's all good. But that was my thing, Jake. Like I said before, to be the best that you can possibly be. And by me saying that is first you must identify who you are. See, most people don't know who they are. And most people, Jake, as you probably know as well as I, just do enough just to get by. They don't do the best they can.
Right.
They always sell themselves short.
I got to tell you, I'm part of that crew too. I do that same thing. We're all filthy sinners, and I do that. I don't commit all the way sometimes. I understand what you're talking about.
But I'm just saying, Jay, you know how much better you can be when you really commit yourself all the way? Totally, man. This makes it totally different, man.
And when you teach these kids nowadays, and we'll go back to Vienna, but when you teach these kids nowadays to pitch and all, and working in your church actively, is that the message that you try to convey to these kids? Just do your best at whatever you do, and if you fail, you just get back up and you do it again. Is that the message that you send to these kids?
Yeah, that's one of the messages. And another message, you got to identify who you are. You don't know who you are. And God-given talent. God give you the talent to be the best in the world. And if your mentality doesn't stand that. If you can't achieve it mentally, your body cannot achieve it physically. So
Yeah, that makes total sense. So now you did, from my research, it says that you got almost 200 basketball scholarships in high school. What were some of these schools that wanted you to play for them?
Well, some of the great, I can't think of it right now. It was some of the greatest colleges that were around, and I got a lot of scholarships to it. I remember one scholarship to a place called Blue Mountain Community College in somewhere in Virginia, in the hills of Virginia.
Right.
So, I had, like you said, I had a number of scholarships, but it didn't make, my differences didn't make anywhere I would have gone, Jake. I would have been achieved.
Yeah, sure. But why did you eventually decide to go straight to the majors instead of taking one of these scholarships?
Well, first of all, the finances, Jake.
Sure.
At that time,
guaranteed money.
I would say the answer is money.
Sure.
I signed a nice contract, and at that time it was great. I just basically, Jake, just wanted an opportunity to play.
Right. And you're probably looking at baseball, you probably had some people along the way that were telling you it's probably easier on your body to be a pitcher. I mean, now that we know the story, that seems kind of weird, but, there was probably all kinds of things. Now, you are selected second in the Major League Baseball draft. I believe that was 71, if I'm not mistaken.
69.
Oh, 69. I'm sorry, you're right. The 1969 baseball amateur draft, you were chosen second behind Jeff Burroughs of the Washington Senators. And how proud is Vienna, Louisiana of you on that day? First of all, how did these guys even know about you back in 1969? Or do you remember scouts coming down to watch you pitch? And was it always like that?
Okay, let me tell you the story, Jake. I hit about 6 home runs. I hit 4 in one game. And the real story is that Howard Harebrun from CBS News come down and done a story on me at that time. Oh. And that's what really catapulted my fame.
Okay.
And then I went and hit 4 home runs one day and had 2 the day before. Oh. And all of a sudden they said, who in the world is this guy here?
Right.
And I had a lot of scouts at the game. And I was pitching, and I was really feeling good that night. And Will got loose and went through some shaking while, Jake. And and it was a whole free in the stand. Everybody kind of moved from that area.
So let me ask you, because I know in high school you actually went one year where you didn't give up an earned run all year. You might not have given a run. I know you didn't give up an earned run. You were a hell of a hitter. So, and I don't think did you lose a game at all in high school?
No, I didn't.
You went completely undefeated your high school career, correct?
4 years in a row.
That is amazing. Amazing. Now, what do you think about today's baseball where the pitchers don't hit like a bunch of cowards?
Well, I think in the sense that may be good, but I considered myself as being an athlete at that time, Jake. So, and I love to hit, and our hitters love to hit, and hitters love to pitch.
That's true. That's true. And so you get drafted second. You go down. You're in the minor league system. You're riding these buses. You're in these little backwood towns. How did you enjoy your minor league experience?
Well, I enjoyed it, Jake. For one thing, I accepted it as it was. So and some things when you realize you can't change anything, but you learn to live with them. That's what really helped me, Jake.
Right.
And accepting what it was and dealing with what it was, and because I never was bothered with either small towns, because I didn't go down to bother nobody, and didn't nobody bother me, and I was there to play baseball and baseball only.
Right.
I didn't try to pick no trouble. Even though the little town was small and hectic, God still took care of me well enough so that I didn't come by any trouble in the South or anywhere like that. I didn't go through a lot of things that they have gone through. Some black ball players have gone through in their previous years.
Right. Was there anyone in the minor leagues that kind of gravitated towards you and pulled you in and showed you how to become a professional baseball player?
No, it didn't. Because I was just kind of a loner.
You were.
Because some of the things that I was taught at home, you don't be with a crowd, because when you with a crowd,
yes,
if they do something, they gonna automatically ban you as being a part of that, even though you was 15 to 20 miles away from that time. So, if I was gonna do something, I was going to be able to do it alone and do it by myself, and wouldn't be no repercussions, because I knew what right and wrong was. The things that I was taught in the country stayed with me over the period of years. And from that, if you see what they done in the country, you had, for your wrongdoing, you had consequences for your actions.
Sure.
As they don't do this today. And that was the thing really kept my feet to the fire, Jake, was to
stay grounded and stay yourself.
Stay in my lane, as they would say. Stay in your lane. Don't get out of your lane. Do what you're supposed to do, and you have no trouble. But when you get out of your lane and try to do things that you have no business trying to do, and don't do things because other people are doing things, that's when you get all twisted, Jake. You got to realize most people get in trouble from their friends, not for something they have done.
Right.
Their friends have made a decision on doing something crazy and stupid.
Being a follower.
And that's how most kids get in trouble.
Yeah.
It's being a follower instead of being a leader.
Absolutely. So, it almost sounds like, were you lonely? Were you lonely in your Major League Baseball experience? Were you a lonely guy? It almost sounds like you were. No?
No, I wasn't lonely, but I was a loner.
Okay.
Which means I ran by myself a lot, but I never was alone. So I learned how to read, and I learned how to pray, and I know, Jay, this I do know. Do you believe what you can see, or do you believe what you see?
Right.
What I'm saying by that, Jake, I know God was with. Look here, Jake. If God is all over the place, why do people pray God stop by here?
I gotcha.
I'm trying to understand that. God is already here. So what's the problem?
It's like, I was thinking about that too. Like sometimes when you pray to God, it's kind of rude because God already has a plan. So why are you praying to interrupt God's plan? Sometimes it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
He's already there.
Exactly. Interesting stuff. So,
but you know, Jake, most people Those say things from the Bible about what they hear. It's never about what they have read or what they have understood and studied.
Right. And I've heard you say before that when you were in the majors, you said that you had professed, but you weren't really a follower. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would claim to be a follower, but you've even said in other interviews that your faith got much stronger and a much clearer, much more clarity after your playing career was over. And is it because you live inside this major league bubble, money, cars, women, even though you didn't quite live in that bubble, it sounds like?
No, I professed Christ, but I didn't live Christ at that time.
Exactly. I got you.
And now, since I got out of baseball and look back on a lot of things, and I realized there's got to be a change. Because things don't change until you change.
Exactly.
Things remain the same as long as you remain the same.
So you're in the minors, and you're this big 6'8", almost 300-pound guy. You're strong, you're athletic, and you've always seemed to have trouble with your mechanics. Is that because of the size of you? I noticed that a lot of big pitchers like yourself, they have trouble with the control. Now, I think in some ways, having little control off days was good for you because it put the intimidation in the batter. But I also wonder if being such a big man and having big hands the way you do you think that ever came into play as far as the mechanics and throwing strikes?
No, it didn't, Jake, because when you're large like that, the less mechanics you use, the less movement you have when you're winding up, the better control you have.
And do you think that when I watch you, I actually watched your 81 All-Star game the other day, or the 80 All-Star game, and I mean, you're throwing fastballs at 97, your sliders are at 92, and I thought Reggie Jackson was going to corkscrew himself into the ground trying to swing at that one pitch that you threw up. Do you think
Did he?
He went right on his butt, did he? I mean, I got to be thinking, when you're on the mound, are you like kind of chuckling to yourself, or are you kind of worried about Carew because he looks like he's trying to steal home?
No, I wasn't worried because if I get the man at home, I ain't worried about it. Carew ain't going nowhere.
I gotcha.
So I didn't let, as I summed up the situation, I did not let that distract me from what I was doing.
Right.
Because, first of all, Jake, I feel and believe that I was the baddest line in the valley. And you only shake yourself. People don't shake you because you allow people to shake you. And what that means is that when people shake you, Jake, you know what that means? That they have more control over you than you have over yourself.
Gotcha. Good stuff. So you're going on. You're dominating. You're putting up back-to-back 300 strikeout seasons. You play in the All-Star game that we're talking about, and you were a little bit wild, but you got 3 strikeouts in there. And what'd you think about starting an All-Star game?
Well, I think that was fantastic, and I also realized that it's something that I earned. It wasn't given to me. I earned that.
That's right.
And I accepted it, and I really enjoyed playing, playing an All-Star game.
You were sweating bullets on the mound that day, brother.
Oh yeah, I was ready. I was, as they say, I was amped up.
You was jacked up when you came out. You can tell because you're just a little bit wild, but you're throwing the ball through the catcher. It's pretty much amazing.
Jake, you call it wild enough to be effective.
Right, exactly, and scarily effective.
And Jake, I never. My philosophy was I never did hit anyone. They just did not get out of the way, so it's their fault, not my fault.
That makes sense. That's totally acceptable for me. I totally get what you're saying there. So you have the All-Star game, and then literally within a week later, I mean, one of the most horrible things that could ever happen. And your own words, why don't you tell me about that day in the Astrodome when you're playing catch?
Well, that day, Jake, I had been complaining about my arm, and they just kept running me out there to pitch and pitch and pitch, and people kept on wondering why did I come out of games early and things like that. And see, and I realized this: when something is wrong with your body, when something is wrong, your body talks to you, and if you don't listen to it, you're gonna have problems. And unfortunately, I had a stroke. And I accepted that. That's what it was. And, because I couldn't do anything to change it at that time. So I didn't go through a lot of mental anguish or anything else mental because that's what it was. So you take a lemon and you make lemonade, Jake. You don't sit there and try to do something else to the lemonade. You just make lemonade and go with the flow and stay positive. And keep it going.
Well, I got to tell you, I going back and doing the research, I just think it's totally reprehensible the way the Houston media treated you down there. They basically called you a complainer, a diva. And I heard guys like Enos Cabell say, wait a minute, this guy never once asked out of a ball game. I've never seen him ask out of a start or anything. And yet they're making you feel like that you're like jaking it here or something, or you're pissed off because Nolan Ryan got a bigger contract than you, and it's all nonsense. Right? We all know that it's nonsense now, and I got to tell you, I think it's a complete shame that you almost had to kill yourself for people on that team in that organization to take you seriously at that time. It's reprehensible.
That's true, Jake. It's something I think it's something that we can equate back to the Indians. Look what the Indians done, but we can go back further than that. Look how good Jesus Christ was, and look what they done to him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So people are going to be people. And you can't change people. There are some good people and there are some bad people. Unfortunately, it was some bad people, and so you got to realize too. This Jake, Houston, Texas is still in the South.
And like, what's that year like after it? I mean, do you have delusions in your head that I'm going to play Major League Baseball again? Like, what's going on inside of you while you're recovering from the stroke?
Well, I did have that, Jake, and I realized that I was going through a major depression at that time, and baseball was just and I was just completely depressed, seriously, because I wasn't playing baseball.
Right. It must have been awful for you. I mean, you've been this type A personality competitor all your life, and you've been complaining about. And let's go back for a second, for a second. This wasn't your first stroke, right? You had 2 strokes previously, and you didn't even know it. Correct?
That's true.
So,
well, because the doctors told me I had 3 strokes.
So let me ask you, did you have like ringing in your ears at times? Did you feel lightheaded? Were there days going into that day that you felt a little off? Besides the fact that your arm hurt, was there physiologically anything inside of you that was telling your body's not right now? Not just your arm, your body.
Jake, my arm never did hurt. It was my fingers. I was getting black spots in my fingers, which was a sign of blood being cut off from my arm. But they told me, Jake, as a brother, it's all in his head. Right.
That's the horse crap that they used to feed back then. I hear you. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you were probably one of only like 4 black pitchers in the league at that time.
Right, I was the top of the heap. I was the baddest line in the valley at that time.
There ain't no doubt, brother. You
got to remember, the last 3 years of my career, I was the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. So you go on, and rightfully so, you sue the Astros, and you win that in court. They have to pay you off, and your relationship with the Astros has never been the same ever since, has it?
No, it hasn't, Jake. I literally got bent over and took to the curve and got seriously screwed from my agent Tom Rich that was in Pittsburgh at that time. He was a close friend of the Astros, and I got screwed through him, and because he did not give me any type of advice as an agent or anything. So I was just out there on my own, and me having that stroke, I didn't know Sikkim from come here at that time, so I was just trying to hang and do the best that I possibly could.
And you make a couple bad investments. You're talking about this agent who's really not doing anything to earn. Like, once you have the stroke, it sounds like he's pretty much done with you. So this guy's pretty much leaving you in the lurch. The Astros are busting your balloons over here. You take them to court. You win some money off of them. Now you make some bad investments, and all of a sudden you're losing cars, your house, and you can see all of it coming. What's going through is there desperation? Are you talking to God at this point? Before you become homeless.
Yes, I am.
And you see the writing on the wall. What's going on in your head, JR?
Well, what's going on in my head is that I'm really taken to God at heart now. That's when really conversion came. And I just say, I'm still alive. So, what am I really complaining about? People, if you go to other countries, people have a lot worse than what we have, Jake.
Right.
If you think we got it good, go to some of these Indian countries.
You ain't lying, bro. I will never go to India. I mean, I
go to Africa.
Yeah.
Even Brazil, some of these countries, and go
South America. Absolutely.
See how them people are living.
So you wind up actually living under a bridge that is literally, a mile, 2 miles away from the Astrodome?
Yeah, it's not that far, about 5 hours. I would say about 5.
And brother, I can't even imagine, do you cry at night when you're laying there by yourself? There's nobody there to help the great J.R. Richard. He's now sleeping under a bridge in the middle of Houston. What are you doing? You're talking to God? You're crying? What's going on at this point?
Well, I ain't crying. I'm talking to God, but I ain't crying. And I just feel and believe that the one thing I'm grateful about is that through it all, Jake, I'm still alive. I'm still here.
Right.
So I'm not complaining, and I always have said, Jake, it's not your complaint, but it's the one that you complain to.
Okay.
Which I'm thinking about prayer. You got to realize this, Jake. The only way a man can hold you down is he got to be down there with you.
That's right.
And the only way a man can ride your back is that you have to be bent over. A man cannot ride your back if you standing straight up.
So eventually, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, I believe Bob Watson finds out that you're living under this bridge, and the Astros, decide, I don't know if it was Enos Cabell and Watson decide to try to help you out and hook you up with were those the guys that basically reached out to you?
They say they did, but I can't recall any of them, Jake. Okay. I don't recall any of them say, okay, then we're going to do this. But I had one friend that I used to know named Chris Clark. They used to work at this country club. He come by one night and picked me up. And he seemed to find out that was me. And he picked me up and said, man, you can come stay with me till you get up on your feet. And so that's what I done. And ever since then, things have been going up.
That's awesome. But here's the thing that I don't understand. The Houston Astros have new ownership now. I don't understand why this new ownership will not reach out to you. I mean, you didn't sue them, so I don't understand what the problem is with this new ownership. Do you have any relationship with the new ownership of the Houston Astros?
Well, Jake, that question I do not understand myself because I've tried to get several jobs. I attempted to get several jobs with them out there, and it's always been some type of excuse. But, it's I cannot explain it, Jake.
I don't understand that either.
They're just people.
I mean, whenever I see, like, you coming back to the Astros games and them interviewing you, like, you just sense the whole excitement of it all. Now, they did retire your number or put you, well, they didn't retire your number. They put you in the Astros Hall of Fame, correct?
Yeah, but they still haven't retired my number.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I just a pat on the back as a pacifier. I'm pacifying you, patronizing you.
I don't get it, sir. I just don't get it. New ownership, they should be able to get over that, and I think they should make a better effort to reach out to Mr. J.R. Richard. Now, look, all the good, you went from the highest mountain to the deepest valley, through the pits of hell, and now you're back on your feet, you're helping kids. What is J.R. Richard all about now?
Well, I'm all about God staying alive and for doing the right thing, because when it's all over, I want to end up in heaven. I don't want to go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I to teach everybody and to treat everybody. You don't because I don't treat people like they treated me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more mature than that. I'm better than that. So I'm not gonna get out in the muck and mire as people did. See, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my head up and keep going on.
Awesome.
Because whatever it is, Jake, I'm thankful, because I realize this, Jake, it could have been worse, a lot worse.
Right.
Even though I had the strokes, normally, Jake, when people have strokes, they are out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have an aunt who had a stroke, and that was literally probably 14 years ago, and, I love my aunt, but she's not quite there all the way, you know what I mean? So, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to strokes, man. They're very, very dangerous things. How long did it take? I mean, because, like, I'm speaking to you, you speak better than my aunt does, quite honestly, and you seem very cognizant of what's going on. How long did you go, how many years did you go before you started feeling like mentally, emotionally, you were back to being J.R. Richard?
Well, I'm still not J.R. Richard, because it had a life-threatening injury. I'm still there. I still have problems with my left side as far as stroke is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm not going to let a little thing like that stop me, because it's not about me. It's about God, and God alone, Jake. So
that's a great message, Mr. Richard. Well,
that's my whole idea, and I realize that God has given me this health and strength.
That's all.
God, because God said the power He gave you is the same power that He rose Jesus from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is absolute power, and that power is within you. So you can't, you give out, but you don't ever give up.
That's right. Good inspirational stuff, Mr. Richard. Definitely good inspirational stuff. Now, before I let you go, we have this game that we play, and I've had Ken Singleton, Bill Lee, Willie Mays Aikens. I've had all kinds of guys in here. We like to play this game. It's called Who Owned Who? And I will give you the name of 9 Hall of Fame baseball players, and you tell me if you own them or if they owned you. Okay? Okay, here we go. The first batter, Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt. Did you own him or did he own you?
Okay, I'm going to turn this game around. I didn't own anybody.
Okay.
But I respected everybody, but I didn't give a shit about anybody. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Okay.
Because my mentality was, Jake, I'm still the baddest line in the valley.
Right.
I think that you ever ask them that question, and they can answer that question better than I could.
So, let's look at it here. Actually, I'm going to say you owned Mike Schmidt, because he was only 7 for 41. He only hit 171, and you struck him out 16 times, JR. The great Mike Schmidt.
Well, I still have that mentality, Jake, and not boasting about what I've done. So, you know what I'm saying, Jake? I still have to keep that in mind. That's why I use a reference that I didn't own anybody.
Okay.
But I respect him.
How about this? Did he get the best of you, or did you get the best of him? How's that, okay?
You've already answered that question, Jake.
All right, well, here's the next one. Here's the next batter.
Okay.
Did Pete Rose get the best of you, or did you get the best of Pete Rose?
I think I come on top in all the individuals that you may name. I think I come on top.
That's it. That's the game, then. That's the game. That's it. That's the perfect answer, my man. I love that. I love that. You are still a lion at heart, my brother.
Hey, Mr. Jake.
Yes, sir.
If we make a deal to go to Kansas City, I would love to have you there.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk to Mr. Kendrick, and I would love to do something with you this summer. We'll go up to Kansas City. I'll meet you up there. We'll do a couple shows together. I would love to do that. I can't wait to meet you, Mr. Richards.
You know, we got to bring the umpire with us.
Absolutely. We'll bring Reggie, and we'll bring my friend Classy Todd Blassie, who's Reggie's friend, and we'll make a good week out of it. Mr. Richard, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very important schedule. I know you don't do a lot of sit-down interviews, and for you to do that with me, I feel totally honored, and I love you, brother. You have a great life. You take care of your family, and let's get together this summer and head out to Kansas City and hang out at the Negro Baseball Museum.
And Jake, I love you more, and I thank you for your time and your attendance to even include me in this interview.
Thank you, brother.
It was a privilege and a pleasure, and I will always be grateful within you, and I love you more than you love me, because I'm not going to let you outlove me, Jake.
That's good stuff, man. All right, Mr. Richard. Again, I want to thank you. You and Reggie have a great day, and I'm sure we're going to be talking quite more in the future, sir.
All right, I got your number, Jake. I'm going to just call you sometime to just say hello.
It's anytime. It's an open invite, my friend. I will always let any badass ace pitcher call me at any time of the day.
Okay, Jake, before we leave, my wife looking at me, she looking at me mean, like, you know what I mean? So she said, I can't go nowhere without her.
I hear you. All right, Mr. Richard, thank you for your time, sir. You have a great day.
All right, thank you, sir, Jake.
Thank you. Bye-bye, sir. All right, guys, and there you go. Wow, that was pretty good. I'm kind of in a state of shock right now. He was good, he was funny, he was poignant, he was opinionated, and he is certainly very, very confident in himself. And I love dudes that are confident in themselves. We didn't quite get to do who owned who. I don't think his Rolodex is quite there. The bottom line is, in his eye, he's the king of the hill, and he dominated them all, and that's that. That's his story. He's sticking to it, and I'm going to stick to it as well. Like I said, just an outstanding interview. I want to thank my boy, Classy Todd Blassie, down there in Houston, Texas, for helping me organize this, get this together, and make it happen. That is my brother for life. I love that dude. I don't give a shit if you guys hate him. That's my boy for life. Classy Todd Blassie, I want to thank you very much. Mikey Ford, my head writer, the guy who does my stats, he does everything. Thank you so much for helping me out on this. I really appreciate it. Kelly Balzito, she's going to be doing the post-production on this. We will put this out on our YouTube channel. If any of you haven't been to our YouTube channel, you got to check it out. It's the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. Come on in, subscribe. I got interviews with Bill Lee, Benny Agbagnani, Ken Singleton, J.R. Richard. Who else does what I do? Nobody. I do what I do, when I do it, and I do it better than anybody else. And that's my J.R. Richard coming out. So I want to thank all those guys for helping me out. Brian Belzito is, of course, as usual, that's my partner in crime. And I want to thank Diamond Mine Online. If you haven't checked it out, it's a small simulation game. You can actually try. Well, have you ever thought about a face-off between, let's say, J.R. Richard and Babe Ruth? Well, that's what this game has. You can draft players from 1900 all the way up to 2000, and you can go out and have yourself a season, and it's really, really fun. It is basically it's sweeping my Facebook page, which brings me to the Facebook page, Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. I want to thank all of you in there for making it the greatest baseball Facebook page that there is. Hands down, nobody's even fucking close. They know it, we know it. And that's it, folks.
I want to thank you all for coming out. God bless, and good night.